we're always the ones that are going to be the person that steps in our way first, right?
Mm.
That primitive portion of our mind and our brain that's generating this form of stress, pressure, anxiety, discomfort. It's always going to happen. Yeah. If you're at least passionate about something and you are trying to excel in it, the higher you're trying to go, the more you are going to feel that. So it's just a matter of being proactive and getting ahead of the game so you can actually be confident when those situations arise that you can handle them effectively and continue to perform well.
What's up? What's up? This is the first official episode of the Mentally Shredded podcast. But I feel like I've been doing this for so long that I can't say it's the first episode. It's just a rebrand. That's it. So we are here with a good friend of mine, Alex Bolowich. Some of you may know him as a mental performance coach. Some of you may know him from his time on the soccer field. However you know him, he is somebody that I look forward to sharing with you the knowledge, his expertise that he brings to the table. I'm just excited. Alex has been a supporter of Mentally Shredded since the beginning, and I'm grateful to call you a friend. So thank you for being here, Alex. And how are you doing this morning?
I'm good, man. No, I appreciate you having me. It's been a good morning, so I'm excited.
There we go. There we go. So let's just take this time to recognize that both of us are business owners.
Yes, sir.
Both of us have taken that step away from the corporate world to pursue what we feel like not only are we passionate about, because, I don't believe in, go do something you're passionate about and you're going to be happy. No, like this is something we truly believe into our core, and it has, and we embody this on a day-to-day basis, mental performance, mental health, things like that. So let's talk about like your reasons behind your passion for mental health and, what led you down this path to become a mental performance coach.
Yeah, so I mean, I was a soccer player growing up, a goalkeeper, and we had a lot of psychological pressures and challenges as goalkeepers. I also played underneath my dad. He was a college soccer coach at UNC, so I had to deal with that a little bit. Injuries and recovering from injuries, being short for a goalkeeper, there was just a lot of things within the position itself that I was struggling with. That's from like a mental performance space. And then from a mental health space, just my time in college was incredibly rough for a variety of reasons. And, so I started to have this passion develop of, I want to help people. I don't want people to go through what I'm going through. So I want to be able to provide some form of service for them. And my initial goal was to become a soccer coach after I graduated, which I did do. And throughout the 6 years of that coaching, I really wanted to dive more into the psychology side of the game. And that's why I got my master's degree in sport and performance psychology and opened up my own business. So it's a long story short, but yeah, it was mainly due to my own personal experiences that influenced me to go down this route.
Gotcha. So you also played in college. That's something I knew we had in common. What's funny, shout out to Coach Leto. So for those of you who know this, I played at St. Andrews Presbyterian College, now St. Andrews University. And Coach Leto was my college coach. I believe he instilled everything I needed in me to actually pursue my career at the next level. Unfortunately, he did not coach me my senior year, but freshman through junior year. Alex also knows Coach Leto. Tell me, he was your youth coach, or how do y'all know each other?
Sort of. So he and my dad knew each other somehow. I forget, just through the coaching grapevine, but my dad hired him to be a coach at the UNC soccer camp ever since I was young, just barely able to walk. And Coach Leto was a coach there at that camp for years on end, year after year after year. And, I was old enough to play. I would end up joining the camps. And Coach Leto was one of my coaches at that time throughout the camp, and I always ask my dad, I'm like, "Can I have him again next year? Like, can I get Coach Leto?" So that's how I know him. But yeah, it's a small world, man. That's
Yeah, such a small world, and we just figured out that we had that mutual contact this year, I think.
yeah,
So, and I've known you. I think we met. I moved here in 2016, so I believe we probably met around when I first moved here, and
yeah,
then reconnected this year when you moved back to Charlotte.
right, yep,
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's talk briefly about mental performance.
mhm.
So you're a mental performance coach for athletes, which is transferable to high performers in general, whether that's you running a business or you're a C suite exec at a corporation, right? Let's talk about the importance of mental performance and what you offer in that specific field.
Yeah. So really, everything we do in our daily lives, we're going to encounter some form of stress. And if we're not trained on how to handle that stress, regardless of where it's coming from or the intensity of it, we're not going to be able to be in control of our situation if we allow the stress to control us. So there's a variety of techniques depending on you, the situation, how you're wired, everything like that, to where I help you train the proper responses and how to condition your mind through a process of neuroplasticity and a variety of techniques. Yeah, it's transferable to the first responders, military, athletes, performing artists, business executives, and just excelling in what your potential is. You may be incredibly smart, you may be incredibly athletic, you may have a great voice, right? If you're a singer, for example, but we're always the ones that are going to be the person that steps in our way first, right?
Mm.
That primitive portion of our mind and our brain that's generating this form of stress, pressure, anxiety, discomfort. It's always going to happen. Yeah. If you're at least passionate about something and you are trying to excel in it, the higher you're trying to go, the more you are going to feel that. So it's just a matter of being proactive and getting ahead of the game. So you can actually be confident when those situations arise that you can handle them effectively and continue to perform well.
Awesome, awesome. So to give people an example, right? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Mhm.
Let's give people an example of what that would look like. Say I was your coming in and I'm struggling with performing I guess with speaking engagements, right? Something that people have a fear of speaking in front of people and what have you. So let's how would you help coach me through my fear of that to become the best speaker I can possibly be?
Yeah, sure. So I would go through a process of understanding your background a little bit and seeing if there's a reason why this started to happen or if this has just always been in place and try to get to the root cause of it. Otherwise, we're going to start with identity formation and establishing value systems because values are what guide our behaviors and our behaviors guide our actions and our actions ultimately dictate our success. So, if we have the proper value systems in place to allow us to perform at our highest level and what we need to achieve, then we're off to a good start. So I call this understanding yourself and understanding your ego and how it's wired, how it's oriented as your 1.0 version of yourself, right? What are the values I adhere to now? And understanding how sometimes these values can actually conflict and get in the way. Even if they're good values to have, there's a good intention, improper execution. This is something that we all do, right? If I'm hyper competitive and I think having a competitive value is good for me, right? I may not be controlling that competitive side of me, and I may let that turn into making irrational decisions, for example,
Okay.
on a soccer field. So if you're like, a very high energy and a very like go after it kind of person and, confront this and do this and that, right? I may be like, you know what? That may be good if we're really trying to fight through something right now, but let's think about trying to work with this right now. So let's see if we can develop a mindset and a value system around composure, around execution, around focus, and start to develop who we need to be as a 2.0 version of ourselves. We keep what's good with us and we upgrade to the next level on what it is that you need to be. Who do you need to be in those moments? And then the actual training process will start with exposure techniques of how are you going to get out in front of people and deliver a proper speech, right?
Mm.
And it kind of depends on what your goal is. Where do you see yourself speaking? And how do you want to be involved in that speech? How do people want to see you? So if you're speaking in front of, 1,000 people, for
Mhm.
example, right? We're going to work up to that. We'll start speaking to 100 people, start speaking to 200 people, so on and so forth. We'll start to develop that comfortability. So you start to get the repetitions in. But at the same time, we're going to have mindsets and tools that we go into each speech with. So we're able to cope with it a little bit better and regulate that stress.
Okay, so as an athlete, if I'm coming to you and we all know those pregame jitters, you just have excess energy and you're trying to get it out. And so if you haven't had the opportunity to get it out before kickoff, speaking specifically to soccer, um, the first few touches on the ball could be a little shaky, right? You're still trying to settle in, you're still trying to calm down, calm the nerves. This same approach that you're talking about can be applied there, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, so for example, I have a variety of tools, right? I just have an entire glossary of them and they don't apply to everybody. And that's where I come in. I'm like, if this is something that's going to take some time to do, for example, in that soccer game, pre-game jitters and pre-game nerves, right? You may have a few minutes in a car from your ride to your home to your game versus 30 minutes in a car, right? So it's like, okay, what are my time demands here? What am I looking at on an actual realistic time platform for you? And then when you get there with your team, you have to be involved with your team to an extent. The warm up starts. You have to be involved with the coach. So you can't just step entirely to the side and start working on your relaxation strategies. So it's about understanding what does your warm up look like, and then where can we fit these in. So we're starting off with that pre-game ride to the field. And then once we're getting there, we have our next strategy. And then is there any break in your warm up where you can hit your next strategy, even if it's for 10 to 30 seconds? And then
Mhm.
right before kickoff, your next strategy. So you're actually progressing into a relaxed state, or as much as relaxed as you need to be, right? I don't want to say that everyone needs to be relaxed. Some people need to be amplified. And it just comes down to the individual.
Looking for a consulting firm that can help your organization achieve its full potential? Look no further than Deck Leadership. With over 25 years of experience in NASCAR, founders Mike Metcalf and Sean Pete know what it takes to lead high performing teams. They can help you uncover opportunities for diversity, efficiency, culture, and kindness, all while inspiring human brilliance. And if they can lead pit crews that can change 4 tires and fill 18 gallons of gas in less than 12 seconds, just imagine what they can do for your organization. Visit www.deckleadership.com for more information. That's fair. So that's just asking the right questions, understanding who your client is and what their needs are to perform at their highest level. Because
Right.
to that point, not everybody needs to be calm.
Right. Exactly. And because some people may shoot, you may have had, a bad night's sleeping. You actually may be a little lethargic, right? You may be having a long week and, this is just something where you're struggling. Maybe your body's fatigued because of a long week and you're just like, I need to get, some energy up. So it depends on what it is. And, two of the easier resources for athletes is any form of breath work and any form of visualization or imagery training, mental rehearsal. Some people call it that. So if I want to relax an athlete, and depending on where they are on their eyes off level, their eyes off is their individual zone of optimal functioning. So if you were to boil it down to layman's terms, it's on a scale 1 to 10, with 10 being the most energized, one being the most relaxed. One is like you're asleep, and 10 is like you're about to have a panic attack. That's how energized you are. Where do you fit right now on this level of 1 to 10? And then where do you need to be in order to perform at your absolute best based off of your previous experiences? When you think about your best game, your best performance, where were you on that eyes off level? All right, I was actually at a 5 or a 6. Where are you when you get to the game? I'm feeling like an 8 or a 9, right? So I'm really amped up. It's like, all right, so we're going to start to bring that down a little bit. So let's start with just 3 to 5 rounds of tactical breathing, right? Tactical breathing would look like a 4-second inhale, a 4-second exhale. This is a very simple standard tool. The Navy SEALs like to use it a lot. And there's a different form of breathing. There's box breathing. There's more shallow breathing to amplify. But if we're talking about relaxation, we're talking about doing it in a short period of time. Let's do 4 in, 4 out, right? And then we can go into your visualization. Let's say you're in the car on the way there to the game, right? I want you to watch 1 to 2 minutes of like a highlight film on your phone, right? If you have that availability, if you have that technology, if you have that data that you can use and you're not in a bad area, right? So all of these things play a factor. And then I want you to go into a 2 to 3 minute mental rehearsal or imagery session where you are doing your own highlight film. And it's different than daydreaming, right? So when I'm doing imagery sessions with my athletes, I'm guiding them through a step-by-step process where your eyes are closed, you do have your headphones on. If you're listening to music, there's no lyrics involved because that's where your auditory senses are going to start to pick up what is being said, right? So now you're not entirely involved in your visualization session. So the lyrics have to be out. And when you're doing this, we think about what's called a PETLET model, right? Which is physical, environmental, task, time, learning, right? Involvement, and then your perception, right? Internal or external. So when we look at that model, it's like, okay, we need to incorporate the 5 senses, right? Everything that you're about to experience, we need to bring it extremely vividly to your imagination. What are you wearing? What are your teammates wearing? What does the soccer field look like if you already know where it is, right? Bring everything that you can see, smell, hear, taste, touch, whatever it is, all of your senses, even your feeling of emotion, right? You're bringing that into your visualization session. The more vivid you can make it, the more impactful it'll be. And then we're going into what the purpose is of that visualization. Are we looking for just proper execution of simple passes to help kind of make you feel into a rhythm of things? Are we thinking about scoring incredible goals? Are we thinking about being composed in high pressure situations? Maybe we rehearse if your team goes down by a goal. How are you going to respond? So we start to individualize it to what it is that needs to be addressed. And we go through what the proper responses are, how you're going to do them, and then we execute because the brain
Love it.
doesn't really know what is imaginary versus real at that point. So
Gotcha. Gotcha.
long-winded
I
answer, but
like the fact that you said take out the words of the music. So the importance of listening to instrumentals or listening to classical music, right? I listen to classical music when I'm working or when I need to perform at a high level because it doesn't distract me. If anything, it just feeds and gives me the energy I need to make sure that I'm putting my best self out there. So I like that because I remember playing and singing lyrics in my head while I'm trying to focus on playing, right?
right,
And that, again, you're distracted when you're out on the pitch. So if somebody passes me a ball and lyrics are playing in my head, who knows what the heck's about to happen, right? Because
right,
my focus isn't 100% here right now. It's in whatever state my brain is taking me to.
right. And there is a little bit of merit to lyrics at some point. So I work with a softball player, and there's a period of time where she's about to be at bat, right? And she's warming up, she's taking her practice swings and whatnot. But the more time you have in anticipation to execute something, the more you're going to feel that stress and anticipation start to build up within you, right? So imagine if you're about to take a penalty kick, in soccer. And then all of a sudden, like, there's a distraction. The referee has to go check something, right? Or, something just happens where it slows you down, right? This is kind of getting out of your time rhythm, which is very important for athletes. We all operate on a series of rhythms. And if your time rhythm is disrupted, that starts the chain of disrupting other factors of you, right? Your physiological rhythm, everything. So it's like when you recognize that that happens, right? What are the either coping, like we were actually a part of this workshop yesterday about the central nervous system, right? Coping strategies or regulation strategies, right?
Yep.
So coping strategy is to distract you from what's happening, right? Regulation strategy is to work within what is happening. So coping is more of like a distraction of sorts. So, which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? If you can at that point do something that is going to distract you in order to keep your rhythm alive, then you're going to do it. So my softball player, if the person at bat in front of them is having a long bout and they're just sitting and practicing and waiting, she starts to sing a song that she likes in her head. And what that's doing is it's keeping her relaxed, right? Because she's feeling that rhythm. She's not really focusing so much on what if the pitcher is going to throw a changeup or, an outside pitch. She's going into her own little world, and she loves a song, and it kind of brings her back into the state of mind that she wants to be in. But if we're working on a visualization strategy, the lyrics are out because it just interferes with your auditory sense. And you're trying to bring your auditory sense into the visualization exercise, then you're going to need it, right? The more vivid we can make the visual, the better. And if our auditory sense is compromised by lyrics, then the visualization is now compromised. So that's why eyes have to be closed, right? Like
Right.
if you're seeing things in front of you, it's going to be harder to see things in your head. And
For
it's
sure.
just a bunch of those little nitty-gritty things that people just don't really know about that are important when you do something like that.
Gotcha. And again, I'm asking these questions to make sure people understand this is transferable, right? This can be used in any industry if you are a high performer, even in sales, right? That's a high performing job. You need to increase sales or you need to start closing deals, right? Like, what are you telling yourself when you're going into these deals anyway? Like, how are you showing up? What are you preparing? Like, what is your routine like? And we talked about routine, how important it is for us to stay in a morning routine and how that sets us up for the day. Can we talk about just briefly what Alex does to make sure that he's showing up as his best self when you are preparing to teach and coach and mentor your clients?
Yeah, depending on the day, if I'm talking about the very beginning of my day, I like to wake up, work out, probably go do yoga if I need to, or some form of high intensity interval training. I try to get some form of exercise in and come back, take a hot shower and a cold shower, right? To, really stimulate the adrenaline and raise that dopamine a little bit, get me in that feel good mood, and journal for a little bit just to really set the intention for the day. Practice some gratitude within that, because every single time we're going through a day, we're going to, find some form of stress. And if we're training to find those areas of the silver lining and we're looking for what we're grateful for in this world, it's going to be easier to handle those stressful moments. So setting my intentions, understand what I'm grateful for, listing out anything that I may be feeling at that time, just to be aware of it, practicing the mindfulness and awareness of, what it may be feeling in my body. It may be feeling tight or sore somewhere, maybe feeling sluggish. How am I feeling my head? I may be distracted. I may be focused. Am I motivated or am I demotivated? What are the things that I need to work with in order to maximize who I'm going to be today? Because when you work with people, you have to show up at your best, right? That is how it is. And we're not going to get it right all the time, but I'm going to do everything I can to get it right as much as I can, as best as I can. So that's some of the morning routine. Get some sessions in with some athletes, depending on what the day looks like, or maybe have a meeting here or there. If I have a break in my day, right? I like to completely shut down the mind for 10 minutes to 30 minutes if I can, right? Just some form of meditation or not really engaged with work, because we can actually only really have a strong bout of focus for up to 90 minutes, right? After that, our focus will start to drop. And if we actually train to shut off and distract ourselves for whatever it is for 10 minutes to 30 minutes, we're going to be able to make more value of the next 90-minute bout, right, of focus that we go through. So I think about all these things because I do the research on them and I listen to podcasts. For example, I'm educating myself throughout a day, reading articles, and trying to do what's best for my athletes at that point or my performers. So I'm always finding time in a day to learn more, to understand my consulting approach, or maybe think about the athlete I have coming up. Who do I need to be for that athlete at that moment? Because every athlete's different and they're going through different things. So I have to shift and adapt and become a different alter ego right away. And then allotting time as well to focus on business. Just like, what's the next step for you know, marketing or social media or whatever it may be, email campaigns, blog. I write my own blog as well. So I divide into those three areas. What am I doing for myself? What am I doing for my athletes? And what am I doing for my business? Try to be as focused and intentional in every single one of those as much as possible. And then at the end of the day, celebrate.
How would you say like your routine and just the lifestyle you live today prepares you for the challenges we face just on a daily basis, right? Because we can't control what is going to happen on a day-to-day basis. We can control two things: what we pour in before we go to bed and what we pour in as soon as we wake up. Outside of that, as soon as you leave your home, you have no more control. So yeah, how does that help prepare you for all the chaos?
Yeah, well, when you look at, it's funny because I look at a lot of athletes and a lot of parents of these athletes who are doing their very best, right? They're just trying off of good intention. And sometimes, like I said, good intention doesn't always lead to good execution. And when I work with these athletes and I see their humanity within the sessions, like all of their stresses, their normal worries, their normal fears, right? But when you teach and when you coach and work with someone and you start to help them with shifting their mind, it helps you shift your own, because you can now take their experience and you can relate it to what you might be able to face later on, right? So if I were to have a terrible setback, right, within, operating a business or something like that, right? I know just exactly my own personal regulation strategies, but maybe there's an athlete that went through something very similar to that, right? And they had to deal with someone in a specific way that I may not have dealt with personally in my own experience. And I can always draw from that. So I always find what's controllable within me, right? I wouldn't say always. I try to. That's the goal, because we're always going to be distracted of what we cannot control. But I can control how I respond to situations. I can't control the situation all the time. I may be able to influence it, right? I'm maybe out of my control entirely, but otherwise, I operate throughout a day of, like, what I do is my business. So, elite mental performance, the word elite for me symbolizes being able to step into any environment under any circumstance and feel completely in control of yourself. That's what elite means to me. So when I work with an athlete, I'm trying to help them prepare for playing against any opponent, stronger or weaker, dealing with any setback, having any form of success, dealing with any coach, any pressure, college scouts, right? Parents, whatever it may be, and feel completely confident that they have a strong locus of control of how they operate within that environment. That to me is what elite means. So I look for those moments throughout the day. I'm looking for what is testing me right now and how do I have my control. You have that mindset and you find a lot of answers. Like I say, you don't always get it right, but when you get it wrong, you'll know, like you'll figure it out.
I
So
love that. I love that. It's not being afraid of setbacks, right? Not being afraid of the no's or of the challenge, but embracing it and making sure you're learning from it. Always keeping that open mind. What can I learn from this experience? I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm feeling, this pressure. Okay, what made me feel this way? And how can I now move forward in spite of me feeling this way? Do I have tools in my arsenal presently, or do I need to learn something new? Right? I love
yeah.
that.
No, like for the longest time, I was looking for happiness, right? And I would always think, success means happiness, right? So I go with my athletes on what is success? How do you define it? What does it look like? Because everyone has a different definition of it. And my own personal one for the longest time was to try to find happiness. So evidently, what do you think happened when I was a human being and something negative happens and I'm not happy, right? I now think I am failing because the opposite of success is failure. So it's like, well, I'm not happy right now. So now I am failing. And our brain takes shortcuts. That's how it operates. So we have to understand when we're actually setting ourselves up for disappointment sometimes. And I was listening to Jay Shetty. I have a bunch of podcasts I listen to in a variety of fields: the sports psychology field, standard psychology, neuroscience, right, life coaching, everything, fitness. So I was listening to Jay Shetty, and he was talking about not looking for happiness, but looking for meaning. So no matter what situation happens to you, you're looking for a reason why that happened to you or happened for you, right? So your significant other breaks up with you, you lose your job, right? It's not a good situation. You're feeling negative, and it's okay to feel that way, right? And acknowledge that. But what hurts that worse is if you're feeling that way and you're thinking, I want to be happy, right? Success equals happiness. Therefore, I'm not happy. Therefore, I'm not successful. Now I feel even worse because I'm not just feeling bad about the situation. I'm feeling bad that I'm not happy within this situation. And if you look for meaning, then you just recognize, okay, like I'm supposed to feel this way. It's all right if I feel this way, but what is the purpose of this? What is the lesson being learned? And what is the silver lining in this cloud, right? Maybe this job, firing me was my way of, exploring something that's meant for me further down the road, right? Not meant to be in this work environment. So now I have options, right? Now I can go select what else is new for me and start a new piece of my life. So it takes time and training, it's easier said than done. But if you practice mindfulness and you actually write these down and you journal on this, that's the quickest way to access the unconscious is through writing. And you actually start to put all of these thoughts on paper and you start to read them and see them. You see your authentic self. You see what's lying deep in the back of your head here, and you make sense of it, right?
Mm.
If you wrote down something in a journal, I guarantee you, like, go back to it, a few weeks later, read it again and be like, wow, like that was me in that moment, right? I was feeling that because right now in this moment, you're different, right? You're a different
Mhm.
version of yourself.
Mhm.
And yes, that was you, right? So don't ignore it, right? That's important because if you do ignore it, you're just not going to learn. It's
Yeah.
clear as day.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about the importance of journaling, gratitude, affirmations, all of it. I'm a huge fan of it, and I know how much it's changed my life. And so thank you for touching on that. As we wrap up, where can people find you on social media? I believe you're taking new clients as well. So just touch on some of that.
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is at elite underscore mental performance. That's also the Facebook page that we have, elite underscore mental performance. I do have a Twitter, but I'm not really active on that. I'm more active on Facebook and Instagram right now. As soon as I get a social media manager, then that's going to be a different story. I'll have all of that sorted. But as anyone else knows in this world, if you're trying like work on social media, it's a full time job itself. But
Absolutely.
yeah, so I would look for me there. Visit my website is www.elitementalperformance.net, not .com, .net. All of my information's on there. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, contact me, get my email on there. Otherwise, shoot me a DM or a message on my social media accounts. And I'm always up for just conversations and connections, right? It's not to say if anyone reaches out to me that I'm going to be like, oh, great, prospective client, right?
Hmm.
I'm going to be like, let's talk, let's learn. Like, do you have something that, is going to be engaging in conversations? I love doing that anyway. So meeting
Yeah.
new people and hearing about different walks of life. Cause like I said, I don't have it figured out. Not anyone has it figured out. Right. I got my own struggles, had a lot of them back in the day. And this is why I do what I do. So I'm always happy to just have a nice conversation about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Bro, I appreciate you coming on. To wrap up, I want you to finish this sentence and then we're going to end this session. So, insert here. I am,
I, that's it. I am I.
I am I.
You want to
You
know
want
what
to
that
you want
means?
to you want to touch on that real quick?
All right. I
I
was
could
about to
see
say,
some guests being a little confused. So, touch on that real quick and then we'll end up.
sure. So when we talk about our identity and who we are, we think about the multitude of things that encompass who we are, but they're not solely who we are. So if I ask you, who are you? And you give me your name, right? I'm Alex Bolowich. Well, I didn't ask you what your name was. I asked you, who are you? Right? Oh, well, I'm a mental performance coach. Well, I didn't ask you what you do. I asked you, who are you? So we keep going down this rabbit hole of, what are the elements of who we are, not just our profession or our name, but our characteristics, our values. And if you really wanted to dive into anybody and figure out who they are, that is a multiple hour conversation to have. If you want to dissect every little piece of your history, your beliefs, right, your values. So when we look at that, we think about how complex we are as humans, but at the same time, very unique in our own ways. And that's where, if you put it all together, I am this word I, this singular letter encapsulates everything, right? That could be broken down into several hours, or I can just make it into a 3-word sentence. And only I know fully, more than anyone else, who I am, right? I'm still learning who I am day to day, right? I'm learning who I'm not day to day. But the one person that knows me the most is myself. So, and that's the same with everybody.
Yeah.
And I embrace it. I embrace all of my amazing traits and my imperfections, my flaws, because that's what makes me unique. So I work on them every day, keep improving, keep growing, but I'll always be me. I am I.
I am I. I love that. Alex Bolowich, everybody. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Again, this is the Mentally Shredded podcast where we look to change the stigma in mental health and empower people through personal development. Until next time, peace.